The gym was empty, 9:47 in the evening, and the only sound was the hum of a broken air conditioner, the reason James Mitchell was here at all. He knocked twice, called out, "Maintenance!" but silence answered back. Then he heard it, a sharp gasp, the rustle of fabric behind a half-open door. She stepped out, hair still wet, no makeup, pulling a hoodie over workout clothes. Their eyes met for exactly 1 second before he looked away. He didn't know he was standing in a building worth $200 million. Didn't know the woman in front of him signed paychecks for 200 employees. All James knew was that he needed the overtime to buy his daughter new shoes, and that this stranger's smile felt like the first warm thing he'd seen in 3 years. The alarm went off at 5:45, same as every morning. James reached across the cold side of the bed, a habit he still hadn't broken after 3 years, and silenced it before the second beep could wake Lily. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator clicking in the corner, that familiar rhythm he'd come to think of as the building's heartbeat. He swung his legs over the edge of the mattress and sat there for a moment, letting his eyes adjust to the gray Seattle dawn filtering through the blinds. On the nightstand, his phone showed 2 notifications, a weather alert for rain surprise, and a text from Build Care Dispatch that had come in at 11 the night before. Emergency job tomorrow evening. Reynolds Tech building downtown. HVAC failure in the fitness center. Overtime available. James rubbed his face with both hands. Overtime meant calling Mrs. Chen downstairs to watch Lily. It meant missing dinner together, missing the bedtime routine they'd built like a fortress around their small life. But overtime also meant money. And money meant the new shoes Lily needed, the ones she'd been pretending not to notice were wearing through at the toes. He showered quickly, dressed in his work clothes, navy blue pants, gray polo with the Build Care logo on the chest, and headed to the kitchen. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a bathroom with a perpetually dripping faucet he kept meaning to fix, a kitchen that opened into a living space barely big enough for their second-hand couch and the small table where they ate every meal. But it was clean. It was theirs. And every wall held something that mattered. Lily's drawings taped at her eye level, a few framed photos from before, the calendar where they marked off days until her birthday with matching purple X's. James cracked 3 eggs into a bowl and whisked them with the efficiency of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. He'd learned to cook after Sarah died. Had to. Those first months, he'd survived on frozen dinners and cereal until one night Lily had looked at him across the table, 4 years old and far too serious, and said, "Mommy made better food." Not cruel, just honest, the way children are before they learn to soften truth, so he'd taught himself. YouTube videos watched at 2 in the morning when he couldn't sleep. Trial and error. Burnt pancakes and oversalted pasta, and one memorable disaster involving a smoke detector and what was supposed to be grilled cheese. Now he could make a decent breakfast, pack a lunch that wouldn't embarrass his daughter, even braid her hair, though that last one still took 3 tries most mornings. The eggs sizzled in the pan. He dropped 2 slices of bread in the toaster, poured a glass of orange juice, the store brand kind that was on sale last week. Then he heard the shuffle of small feet on hardwood. "Morning, Daddy." Lily stood in the doorway in her pajamas, the ones with the faded stars that she refused to give up even though they were getting too short in the legs. Her dark hair was a tangled mess, and she was clutching a piece of paper to her chest. "Morning, sweetheart. Hungry?" She nodded and climbed into her chair at the table. James served the eggs, added a slice of toast cut diagonally the only acceptable way, according to Lily, and sat down across from her. "What you got there?" Lily looked down at the paper like she'd forgotten she was holding it. "I made something at school yesterday. For art." "Yeah? Can I see?" She hesitated, then slid it across the table. James picked it up carefully, the way he always handled her drawings, like they were documents of great importance. In a way, they were. It was a family portrait. 3 figures standing in front of a house that looked nothing like their apartment. It had a yard, a tree, a sun in the corner with rays shooting out like spokes on a wheel. The tallest figure had dark hair and was labeled Dad in careful letters. The smallest had pigtails and a purple dress. "Me," and in the middle, there was a space. Just white paper. An outline that had been erased and never filled in. "That's you and me," Lily said, pointing unnecessarily. "And that's—" She trailed off. James felt the familiar ache behind his ribs, the one that never quite went away. He'd learned to live with it, the way you learn to live with a scar or a limp. It was just part of him now. "It's beautiful," he said, and he meant it. Really beautiful. "I didn't finish it. That's okay. You can finish it whenever you want." Lily took a bite of her eggs, chewing thoughtfully. "Do you think Mommy would have liked it?" James set the drawing down gently, touched the chain around his neck, hidden under his shirt, where Sarah's ring hung against his chest. "She would have loved it. She loved everything you made." "I know." Lily returned to her breakfast, apparently satisfied. "I remember." After they ate, James washed the dishes while Lily got dressed. He checked his banking app while the water ran. $247 until Friday. The rent was paid, utilities were current, but that left little room for anything else. Lily's shoes weren't a want, they were a need. Kids' feet grew whether you could afford it or not. She emerged from her room in the same outfit she'd worn 3 days ago because it was her favorite, and because James had learned which battles were worth fighting. He knelt down to help her with her shoes, the ones with the small hole near the right toe that they both pretended not to see, and noticed the pink hair tie she held out to him. "Braids today? Please." He guided her to the couch and sat behind her, running his fingers through her hair to work out the tangles. The first attempt at the braid was crooked. The second was too loose. The third was acceptable, if not exactly the neat plaits Sarah used to create with seemingly no effort at all. "There, all done." Lily touched her hair, checking his work. "It's good, Daddy." "Just good?" "Pretty good." He smiled, really smiled, the expression coming easier with her than it did with anyone else. "I'll take pretty good." They walked to school together, same as every morning. Lily held his hand for the first 2 blocks, then let go when they got close enough that her classmates might see. James understood. 7 was old enough to start caring about things like that. At the gate, she turned and hugged him quickly. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, sweetheart. Have a good day." He watched her disappear into the building, backpack bouncing against her small shoulders, and felt the specific loneliness of being a single parent, the way every goodbye, no matter how small, carried weight. His phone buzzed. The dispatch notification again, reminding him about tonight's job. Reynolds Tech, some company he'd never heard of in a building he'd never been to, just another name on the list of clients that BuildCare serviced. Another anonymous tower downtown where something had broken and someone needed it fixed. James texted Mrs. Chen to confirm she could watch Lily tonight. Then he headed to the bus stop, mentally calculating whether the overtime would cover a new pair of shoes with enough left over for groceries. It would. Barely. Oh wait. The security guard at Reynolds Tech checked James's contractor ID twice before waving him through. The lobby was all glass and steel, the kind of aggressive modernity that always made James feel slightly out of place in his work boots and tool bag. A massive digital display behind the reception desk cycled through what looked like company propaganda, smiling employees, sleek technology, the slogan, "Building Tomorrow's Solutions Today." James had seen 100 lobbies like this one. They all blurred together after a while. "Fitness centers on 3, the guard said. "Take the east elevator, follow the signs. Building's pretty empty this time of night, but someone from the company's still up there. Said they'd meet you." James nodded his thanks and headed for the elevator. The building was quiet, that particular hush that descends on office spaces after hours. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Somewhere above him, a broken air conditioner was waiting to be fixed, and after that, he could go home, pay Mrs. Chen, check on Lily sleeping in her bed with the nightlight on. The elevator dinged at 3. The fitness center was easy to find glass walls revealing rows of treadmills and weight machines, all empty now. The door was propped open. Inside, the air was thick and warm, the HVAC clearly not doing its job. James knocked on the doorframe. "BuildCare maintenance. Anyone here?" No answer. He stepped inside, scanning the space. Locker rooms to the left. Equipment area straight ahead. What looked like a small office in the corner. The control panel for the HVAC system would be in the utility closet, probably near the back. He was halfway across the room when he heard it movement from the women's locker room. Water running, then stopping. "Hello?" he called out, louder this time. "Maintenance, I'm here to fix the AC." A voice, slightly muffled. "Oh, 1 second. I'll be right out." James stopped walking and looked away from the locker room entrance, giving whoever was in there privacy. A minute passed. Then a woman emerged, still pulling a hoodie over her head, her hair damp and pushed back from her face. She was maybe early 30s, with the kind of sharp features that made you look twice. No makeup, yoga pants, sneakers that had seen better days. "I am so sorry," she said, slightly breathless. "I completely forgot I called for maintenance. I was just finishing up and—" She gestured vaguely at herself, at the situation. "No, I should apologize. I knocked. I called out. You did. I had my headphones in." She smiled, a little embarrassed. "My fault entirely. I'm Kate. Just Kate. No last name." James figured she was probably one of those employees who stayed late to use the gym after the crowds cleared out. He'd met plenty of people like that over the years. "James Mitchell," he said. "Build care. I'll just take a look at the system and get out of your way. Please. It's been like a sauna in here for 2 days. I don't know how people have been working out." James located the utility closet and got to work. The problem was immediately apparent, a faulty sensor that was telling the system the room was 10 degrees cooler than it actually was. Simple fix. Maybe 20 minutes of work. Kate didn't leave. She lingered nearby, watching him with what seemed like genuine curiosity rather than impatience. Most clients disappeared the moment a repair person showed up, content to let the problem be someone else's responsibility. She was different. "The sensor's bad," he explained, more out of habit than necessity. "It's reading the wrong temperature, so the system thinks everything's fine when it's actually overheating. I'll swap it out and recalibrate." "Huh." She leaned against the doorframe. "So it's basically lying to itself." "Pretty much. Sounds familiar." James glanced at her, not sure if she was joking. Her expression gave nothing away. He worked in comfortable silence for a while, aware of her presence but not bothered by it. She wasn't hovering or asking unnecessary questions, just observing. When he pulled out his phone to check the time, 9:52, not bad she noticed the lock screen image. "Your family?" James looked at the photo. Lily's face, grinning at the camera. A smear of chocolate ice cream on her chin from the day last summer when he'd splurged on cones from the shop near the park. "My daughter, Lily. She's 7. Kate's expression shifted, something softening around her eyes. "Late night for a dad with a 7-year-old. Overtime pays for new shoes." He said it without thinking, then felt immediately self-conscious, like he'd revealed too much. But Kate just nodded slowly. The practical kind of heroism. James didn't know what to say to that, so he returned to the repair. The new sensor clicked into place. He ran the calibration sequence, watched the readings stabilize. "Should be good now. Temperature'll drop over the next hour or so." "That's it?" "That's it." He packed up his tools and stood, wiping his hands on his pants. Kate was still watching him, an expression on her face he couldn't quite read. "You're good at that," she said. "The explaining part. Most repair people just grunt and hand you a bill. I was an engineer. Before." The words came out before he could stop them. He didn't usually volunteer information about his past. "Before? Before this." He gestured at himself, at the uniform, the tool bag. Life changes. Priorities shift. Kate was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I ask you something? Feel free to tell me to mind my own business." James shrugged. "Go ahead. The company I work for is hiring a facilities manager. Building systems, maintenance oversight. Better hours than late-night emergency calls. Better pay, too." She paused. "I could put in a good word, if you're interested." James blinked. He wasn't sure he'd heard her correctly. "You don't know anything about me. I know you fixed in 20 minutes what's been broken for 2 days. I know you explained it, so I actually understood. And I know, she pointed at his wrist. He looked down. The pink hair tie. Lily's, wrapped around his wrist this morning when he'd pulled his hand away from her braid. He'd forgotten it was there. I know someone who braids his daughter's hair and still makes late-night service calls deserves a better schedule. Kate smiled. Just think about it. If you're interested, leave your number with security downstairs. HR will call. Monday. James opened his mouth to refuse. He'd learned a long time ago that things that seemed too good usually were, but something stopped him. Lily's shoes with the hole, the $247 in his account. The look on his daughter's face when she'd handed him that unfinished drawing. Who do I talk to? Just be yourself in the interview. That'll be enough. She said it with such certainty that James almost believed her. 2 weeks later, James walked into Reynolds Tech through the front entrance for the first time as an employee. The job had happened faster than he'd expected. A phone call Monday morning, an interview Tuesday afternoon, an offer by Wednesday evening. The salary was nearly double what he'd made at BuildCare. The hours were 8 to 5. Monday through Friday, no more late-night emergency calls, no more weekends away from Lily. He'd be managing a team of 5, overseeing all building systems for a company he was only beginning to understand. The HR representative who'd processed his paperwork had been friendly but vague about who exactly had recommended him for the position. Someone in senior leadership, she'd said with a smile that suggested she knew more than she was sharing. You made quite an impression. James hadn't pushed. He'd learned that sometimes the best response to good fortune was simply to accept it and not ask too many questions. His first week was a blur of orientations, introductions, and the steep learning curve of any new job. The building was massive, 12 floors of offices, conference rooms, server rooms, and the various support spaces that kept it all running. His team was competent and, to his relief, welcoming. They'd been operating without a real manager for months, and they seemed genuinely glad to have someone who understood the work. Kate appeared on his third day. He was in the basement, reviewing the boiler system with his lead technician, when he heard footsteps on the stairs. She was dressed differently now, business casual, a blazer over a simple blouse, but the face was unmistakable. James. She said his name like they were old friends. How's the first week treating you? Good. Busy. Still figuring out where everything is. That building map they give you is useless. I got lost for an entire month when I started here. She smiled. I wanted to check in, make sure the reality matches what HR promised. So far, so good. He paused, something clicking into place. You work here. I assumed you were just using the gym. I am just using the gym. I also happen to work here. There was a playfulness in her tone that made him smile despite himself. Senior leadership. Very boring meetings, lots of spreadsheets. Ah. She lingered for a moment, and James was suddenly aware of the technician standing a few feet away, pretending very hard not to listen. Anyway, Kate said, if you need anything, my extension's in the directory. Don't be a stranger. She turned and headed back up the stairs, and James watched her go with a feeling he couldn't quite name. Over the next few weeks, they kept running into each other. Coffee in the break room, crossing paths in the elevator. Brief conversations that started about work and somehow drifted into other things, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, the particular challenges of Seattle weather. Kate asked about Lily often, remembering details he'd mentioned in passing. James found himself looking forward to these encounters more than he probably should have. He noticed things about her too. Small things. The way other employees seemed to defer to her in meetings, stepping aside so she could speak first. The expensive watch she wore but never drew attention to. Her knowledge of company operations that went beyond what any normal senior leadership role would require. One afternoon, he was fixing a projector in a conference room when she walked in with a stack of folders. Oh, sorry. Didn't know anyone was in here. Almost done. Just needed to replace a bulb. She sat down at the table and began reviewing documents while he worked. The silence was comfortable, familiar now. A man appeared in the doorway, middle-aged, silver hair, expensive suit. He looked at Kate with an expression James couldn't read. Miss Reynolds, The board meeting's been moved to 3. They want to discuss. He noticed James. Stopped. I'll come back. That's fine, Vincent. We can talk later. The man Vincent left, but not before giving James a look that was 1 part curiosity and 2 parts disdain. Miss Reynolds? James asked, keeping his voice neutral. Kate didn't miss a beat. Lots of Reynolds in this company. Common name around here. It was a weak explanation, but James let it go. Whatever her story was, she'd tell him when she was ready, or she wouldn't. Either way, it didn't change the fact that she was the first person in 3 years who'd made him feel like something other than Lily's father or the guy who fixed things. 2 days later, Kate called his cell at 3 in the afternoon. Lily's school had tried to reach him, but he'd been in the server room, out of range. Lily was sick fever, stomachache, needed to go home. I can be there in 20 minutes, Kate said. If you need someone to pick her up, I'm free. James hesitated. He barely knew this woman. Letting her pick up his daughter from school was a level of trust he hadn't extended to anyone since Sarah died. But the server room crisis was real, a potential data loss that could cost the company millions, and his team was looking at him, waiting for direction. Are you sure? I'm sure. Text me the school address. He did, and then he spent the next 2 hours monitoring system recovery while trying not to imagine all the ways this decision could go wrong. When he finally got home that evening, he found Kate and Lily on the couch, heads bent over a math workbook. Lily was giggling at something, her cheeks still flushed from the fever but her eyes bright. Kate makes the story problems into voices, Lily announced. Like a movie. Kate looked up, and there was something vulnerable in her expression, like she'd been caught doing something private. She's a good helper, Kate said. Kept asking questions until I explained it right. I made soup, Lily added. Well, Kate made soup. I watched. James looked around his apartment, small, cluttered. Nothing like the polished world Kate clearly came from, and felt a flash of self-consciousness. But Kate didn't seem to notice or care about the mismatched furniture or the stack of bills on the counter. Thank you, he said, for doing this. I know it wasn't. It was nothing. Kate stood, gathering her things. She's wonderful, James. You're raising a wonderful kid. At the door, Lily surprised them both by wrapping her arms around Kate's waist in a fierce hug. Kate went still for a moment. Then her hand came up to rest on Lily's hair. Feel better, okay? Kate said softly. Okay. After Kate left, Lily turned to James with an expression far too knowing for a 7-year-old. I like her, Daddy. Yeah? He knelt down to her level. Why's that? Lily thought about it. She listens like she actually wants to know the answer, not like grown-ups who are just waiting for you to stop talking. James didn't have a response to that. His daughter had a way of saying things that cut right to the heart of the matter. I like her too, sweetheart. Lily smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her all day. Good, too. Man werve, the pattern continued. Kate showing up in unexpected places. Conversations that grew longer, more personal. James learned about her past in fragments, built this company from nothing. Relationships that ended badly when men realized she had more money than they did. The loneliness that came with always being the person in charge. Everyone wants something, she said one night. They were in the empty break room. 2 in the morning, having just spent 4 hours fixing a critical system failure together. When you have what I have, you learn to be careful. You learn that kindness usually comes with strings. James handed her a cup of vending machine coffee. That sounds exhausting. It is. She wrapped her hands around the cup. You're different, you know. You never ask for anything. You never try to leverage our whatever this is. I don't want anything from you, Kate. I know. She looked at him over the rim of the cup. That's what scares me. The moment stretched between them. James felt something shift, some invisible barrier beginning to crack. Kate set down her coffee and leaned closer, and he found himself mirroring the movement. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Lily had woken up asking for him. Go, Kate said, and her voice was steady even if her eyes weren't. She needs you, he went. But all the way home, he couldn't stop thinking about what had almost happened. 9. 3 days later, James needed a signature on a purchase order for a major equipment upgrade. HR directed him to the executive floor top of the building, restricted access, the CEO's office. He took the elevator up, reviewed his paperwork one more time, and stepped into a reception area that cost more to furnish than his annual salary. The assistant at the desk looked up with professional courtesy. "Can I help you? I have documents that need CEO approval. For facilities. Do you have an appointment with Miss Reynolds?" James's stomach dropped. "Miss Reynolds?" The office door opened. Kate walked out in a tailored suit, her hair perfectly styled, her posture radiating authority. She was holding a folder and speaking to someone behind her. "Tell the board we'll have final numbers by Thursday. I want this acquisition locked down before—" She saw him. Stopped. The world went very quiet. "James." Her voice was barely above a whisper. He looked at the nameplate on the door. Katherine Reynolds, Chief Executive Officer, looked at the woman in front of him, so different from the gym regular in the hoodie, from the friend who'd sat on his couch making soup for his daughter. "You're the CEO." It wasn't a question. Kate turned to her assistant. "Clear my schedule for the next 30 minutes. Then, to James. "Come in, please." He followed her into the office. The door closed behind them. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the Seattle skyline, gray and rain-washed. The room was vast, expensive, intimidating everything Kate had seemed not to be. "You knew," James said. "That night in the gym. You knew who I was, what I did. You knew everything." "Yes." "The job. Was any of it real?" Kate moved toward him, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. "The job was real. You're qualified. You've proven that 10 times over since you started. Everything else, every conversation, every moment between us that was real, too. You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just—" She exhaled. "I wanted you to see me. Not the title, not the money, not what I could do for you. Just me. You didn't think I could handle the truth? I didn't think you'd give me a chance. Everyone sees the CEO first. Everyone wants something from Katherine Reynolds." Her voice cracked. "You saw Kate. You talked to Kate. You let Kate make soup in your kitchen and help your daughter with homework. That's who I really am. The rest is just what I do." James stood there, the purchase order crumpling in his hand, and tried to reconcile the woman in front of him with everything he thought he'd known. "I need time," he said finally. Kate nodded, blinking rapidly. "I understand." He left without signing anything. Behind him, through the closing door, he heard her take a shaky breath. Wayo. That afternoon, the building's central control system failed. Not a minor glitch, a cascading failure that took down heating, cooling, and backup power simultaneously. Outside, the January temperature hovered just above freezing. Inside, 200 employees and millions of dollars in servers began to slowly, inexorably cool. James was in the basement when the alarm started. He was there because he didn't know where else to go, because fixing things was what he did when the world stopped making sense. His radio crackled. "All hands, executive conference room. Emergency meeting." He took the stairs 2 at a time, arriving to find Kate, the silver-haired man from before Vincent, the CFO and several board members clustered around a table, looking at system readings on a projected screen. "We need to evacuate," Vincent was saying. "Call in outside contractors. This is beyond." "That'll take hours," Kate interrupted. "The servers will be destroyed. We'll lose everything. And what do you suggest?" Vincent's tone was sharp, dismissive. "Your facilities manager clearly isn't up to." "Give me 30 minutes. Everyone turned. James stood in the doorway, breathing hard, still processing what he was about to reveal. Vincent laughed. "You can't be serious. A maintenance worker. I was a mechanical engineer for 10 years. The words came out steady, calm, specialized in integrated building systems. "This is what I used to do. Before his wife died. Before he'd stepped away from his career to raise his daughter. Before he'd traded blueprints for tools and a corporate office for late-night service calls. Kate's eyes met his across the room. He saw the question there, and the hope. "Do it," she said. "Whatever you need." He turned and headed for the control room. Behind him, he heard Vincent's objection and Kate's firm response, but he was already focused on the problem at hand. The control room was a maze of panels and monitors, all showing error messages. James studied the readings, letting his old training take over. Power surge had triggered the failsafe cascade. The system thought there was a fire and had initiated emergency shutdowns, but there was no fire. Just a faulty sensor. Same kind of problem he'd seen that first night in the gym. The difference was scale and consequences. "I'm going to walk you through this," he said into the radio. "Have everyone watch on the monitors. I need you to follow my instructions exactly. Wrong sequence means permanent damage." He began the process, isolating grid sections, bypassing sensors, rerouting controls. His hands moved with a certainty he hadn't felt in years, muscle memory combining with knowledge that had never really left him. Resetting backup power, a click, a hum, restarting environmental controls. The vents overhead shuddered to life, bringing servers back online. One by one, the error messages disappeared. Green lights replaced red. 20 minutes after he'd started, the building was stable. Through the control room window, he could see employees gathered in the hallway, watching. When the last system came online, a cheer went up. Kate pushed through the crowd, her face a mixture of relief and something else. "How did you know?" she asked. "Because this is what I do." He looked at her, really looked, and saw past the tailored suit to the woman who'd made soup for his daughter. "Because this is what I've always done." Kate turned to the gathered crowd. "James Mitchell just saved this company millions of dollars. I want everyone to know that." Behind her, Vincent said nothing, but his expression had changed, grudging respect replacing condescension. Later, when the building was quiet again, Kate found James in the basement. He was packing up his tools, the adrenaline finally fading. "You came back," she said. "After this morning, after everything. The building needed help. People needed help." He zipped the bag closed. "It's not complicated. I should have told you." "Yeah, you should have." He straightened up, met her eyes. "But I think I understand why you didn't. And now I need time to process this, to figure out what it means." Kate nodded. "I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here." She turned to go, then stopped. "James? For what it's worth, I'm still me. The woman from the gym. The one who helped with homework. The CEO part is just what I do. It's not who I am." He watched her walk away and thought about masks. The ones people wore. The ones people stripped off. And sometimes, the ones people didn't know they were wearing at all. That night, James tucked Lily into bed and sat on the edge of her mattress, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "Everyone at school says you're a hero," she announced. "Someone's mom works at your building." She told everyone about the pipes. "Not pipes exactly, but close enough. Is Kate mad at you?" Lily was watching him with those too perceptive eyes. "You seemed sad today." "No, sweetheart. It's complicated." "Grown-up complicated?" "Yeah." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you still like her?" James considered lying, then decided against it. His daughter always knew. "Yes." "Then tell her." Lily said it like it was the simplest thing in the world. "That's what you always tell me when I'm scared. Just tell the truth and see what happens." Out of the mouths of babes. His phone buzzed. A text from Kate. "I know you need time. But I need you to know something. I didn't plan any of this. The gym that night was an accident. Everything after that was a choice. You saw me when no one else did. You talked to me like I was a person and not a problem to solve. I fell for the single dad who braids his daughter's hair and fixes impossible things. Not because you work for me, because you're you. If you can't trust me again, I understand. But please believe this. Every word between us was real." James read it 3 times. Then he kissed Lily's forehead. "Go to sleep, sweetheart. You're going to be okay, Daddy. I can tell." He turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching the rise and fall of her breathing. Then he picked up his phone and typed, "Coffee tomorrow? Neutral ground." The reply came seconds later. "Name the place." "No." The coffee shop was busy. Anonymous, exactly what James wanted. Kate was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She looked different than she had in the office. Smaller somehow. More like the woman from the gym. "I felt like an idiot," James said without preamble. "Like everyone knew except me. No one knew. Just HR and my assistant." She paused. "And Vincent. He figured it out recently. Is that why he hates me? He hates you because you're competent, and I care about you. It's a threat." Kate looked down at her coffee. "He's planning something. Trying to take control of the company. I don't have proof yet, but I know." "What are you going to do?" "Fight. It's what I've always done." Her voice wavered. "But I'm tired, James. I'm so tired of fighting alone." He reached across the table. Their hands met, fingers intertwining. "I was scared," he admitted. "That you were too good for me. That this was temporary. Some kind of fairy tale that would end badly. And I was scared you'd only see the CEO. That you'd treat me different." Kate's eyes were bright. "When you looked at me, you saw the woman who made soup. The one who helped with homework. The one who makes me want to try again." He squeezed her hand. "I don't care about the money, Kate. I don't care about the company. I care about the person who showed up for my daughter when I couldn't. Who stayed up until 2 in the morning drinking bad coffee with me. Who makes me feel like maybe I don't have to do everything alone." "What are you saying?" James took a breath. "I'm saying I want to try. Not because of what you have. Because of who you are." Kate's smile was the most genuine thing he'd ever seen. Again, the board meeting happened 2 days later. James wasn't supposed to be there, but Kate had asked him to wait outside. "I might need backup," she'd said, and something in her voice told him this was about more than spreadsheets. When the doors finally opened, Vincent Ashford walked out between 2 security guards. His face was pale with fury. "You think you've won?" he hissed at James as he passed. "You'll never belong in her world. You're nothing but a repairman." James stepped aside to let them pass. "Maybe, but I'm enough for her. That's what matters." Kate emerged a moment later, looking exhausted but triumphant. "Embezzlement," she explained. "He'd been siphoning funds for months, planning to sell us out to a competitor. I finally got the proof. You okay? Better now." She reached for his hand. "Much better now." To ice and 3 months later, James stood on a rooftop garden that hadn't existed until he'd sketched it on a napkin and Kate had made it real. String lights he'd hung himself glittered against the Seattle skyline. Somewhere below, Lily waited with Mrs. Chen, watching a movie and pretending not to know what was happening. Kate arrived in a simple dress, her hair down the way he liked it. She looked around at the garden, their collaboration, their creation with wonder. "This is beautiful." Had some help. They walked to the edge, looking out at the city. James's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. 3 months ago, I was just trying to survive," he began. "Make it to the next paycheck. Give Lily a decent life." Then I walked into a gym and saw a woman in a hoodie. Kate laughed softly, remembering. "You saw me. Not what I lacked or what I'd lost, just me." He reached into his pocket. "And then you made soup for my daughter and helped her with homework and showed up when I needed someone. Not because of who you are, because of who you chose to be." He pulled out a small box, opened it. The ring was simple, he couldn't afford anything flashy, and he knew she wouldn't want it anyway. "I can't give you an empire, Kate. I can't give you billions. But I can give you us. Me and Lily and whatever this is, we're building together." His voice cracked. "Will you be part of that? Will you marry me?" Kate was crying. She nodded, unable to speak, and James slid the ring onto her finger. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes." A small body slammed into them from behind. Lily had escaped Mrs. Chen and come running, unable to wait any longer. "Is she going to be my mom now?" Lily demanded, looking between them with fierce hope. Kate knelt down to Lily's level. "If you'll have me. Can I call you Mom?" Kate's tears fell freely now. "I would love that." They stood there, the three of them wrapped in each other's arms. The city sparkled below. The string lights glowed above. And for the first time in years, James felt the ache in his chest begin to ease. "That's created and rend cold. That I find about and rend eyes." The morning was different now. Same apartment building, same early alarm, but everything else had changed. The kitchen was bigger, part of the house they'd moved into together, nothing extravagant. Just a place with enough room for three. James made breakfast while Kate braided Lily's hair. She'd gotten good at it. Better than him, actually, though he'd never admit it. "I have show and tell today," Lily announced. "I'm bringing my drawing." James looked at the paper she held up. 3 figures, all filled in. Dad, Mom, me. Standing in front of a house that looked exactly like theirs, under a sun that seemed to shine a little brighter. "It's perfect," he said. Kate finished the braid and kissed the top of Lily's head. She's going to be the star of the show. They ate together, the easy quiet of people who'd found their way to each other against all odds. James thought about the journey, the broken air conditioner, the awkward encounter, the lies and the truths and everything in between. He thought about Sarah, who he still loved and always would, and how maybe she was watching somewhere, glad he'd found happiness again. "Daddy." Lily was looking at him. "Are you happy?" James glanced at Kate, at Lily, at the home they'd built together. He thought about all the mornings before this one, waking up alone, wondering if the ache would ever stop. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said. "I really am." They headed for the door together, Kate with Lily's backpack, James with the lunch he'd packed, Lily with her drawing clutched carefully in both hands. As the door closed behind them, the sun caught the picture she'd left on the refrigerator, held up by a magnet from the coffee shop where everything had changed. "My family," she'd written across the top. 3 figures smiled out at the empty kitchen, holding hands. He'd walked into an office by accident and found his future, fixed a broken air conditioner and ended up repairing something in himself he hadn't known was damaged. Funny how life worked out sometimes. One embarrassing moment, one chance encounter, and everything changed. He'd fix that air conditioner again in a heartbeat.